Beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing those. That's wonderful. We know we're going to have some folks on the call that are collectors of Gilbert Lewis's work or knew him. And so we definitely feel free to put stories in the chat, or we will have time at the end. We'd love to hear from you. It's great to have people that knew the artist and that you have the work in your home, I assume is where you're calling from. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I want to say hi. I'm excited to meet you, Tony. I've seen all of your paintings.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Where have you seen? Are you from the museum or?
I'm one of the curators. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So I just wanted to say hi. I'm going to put my picture back on and eat some lunch, but I loved the interview that you did with WHYY. It's really wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. It's always good to see you. Welcome, welcome, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm a longtime friend of Gus. So I don't mean Gus. You know who I mean.
Gilbert.
Well, I haven't seen him for quite a while. I've seen the show. It's wonderful.
Oh, great.
Good.
I have not seen the show yet, by the way.
I've seen a lot of the work that he did out in the nursing home.
I just muted.
In media, which was some of his early work. And what interested me in him was that he was doing that with these people. And a lot of that was exhibited at, was it Woodmere? Anyway,
Yeah, that was at Woodmere.
yes. Anthony, is that you?
I'm here. This is me.
Hi,
Who is speaking? Is that?
Mary Frances Davis.
Okay, I'm trying to find you here. Mary Frances, that's interesting. In all the years I knew Gilbert, I never saw any of the portraits that he did of the nursing home patients until now.
That's great. I mean, it's great you've seen them now. They're so loving.
Oh, I love them. I would love to have some.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if his two caretakers are selling them.
I'll find out. I'm having dinner with them tonight.
Oh, great. Well, I met them. And anyway, I love him. Friends of mine have paintings that he's done. I have not, and I can't afford them.
Well, thank you for sharing, Mary Frances. And it's so nice to have folks who know Gilbert and who are here on the call. I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you as we go. It's so great to have you all here with us for this special Art at Noon Only Tony. We're going to jump in. I just want to do some quick reminders, but first I'm going to ask folks to mute themselves. And I'm Abby King. I'm the Assistant Director of Adult Programs here at PAFA. I'm so excited to welcome everyone here. This is a program I've been looking forward to for some time, so it's great to have such a nice crowd here with us on Zoom today. I wanted to mention that I'm speaking to you all from Philadelphia and wanted to acknowledge that we're gathering on the ancestral lands of the Lenni Lenape people. And a huge thank you to all of our PAFA members that are on the call. It's great to have you all here. Thank you for your support. If you haven't already, please consider joining. I'll drop a link to that in the chat after my introduction. And just some quick things, since we have such a wonderfully large group here with us today. I'm going to hand things over to Jodi and Anthony in just a second, but I am going to ask that if you have questions or thoughts throughout the program, feel free to drop them in the chat. We will save about the last 10 or 15 minutes of the program to have a live Q&A, so no, we'll get to those at the end, and that we want to hear from you. We also know that folks have stories to share, and Note, we are going to ask you to stay muted, but if you want to raise your hand virtually at the end of the program, we'll have time for that. And I'll mention that again at that moment. But I also, of course, wanted to say that we are recording this program. And so this is going to be shared on our YouTube channel that I will drop a link to in the chat now. So we have a wonderful library of past programs. But if you know of anybody that missed the program, someone that knew the artist or just in general wanted to hear more about this fabulous exhibition, please feel free to direct them to this link here. I also have to put in a plug for some awesome events that we have coming up soon. I'm going to drop a link to our events calendar, but I'd like to highlight a project connected to Jodi Throckmorton's other exhibition that's on view, Taking Space, Contemporary Women Artists in the Politics of Scale. I recommend to anybody who's in the area that can come, please see these two great shows in person and register before you go. But we have a program starting Monday, March 8th. It's a 3-part series entitled Making Space, which is featuring feminist geographer Leslie Kern and is going to feature special guests Jodi Throckmorton and Brittany Webb. And they're going to be speaking on how the social inequalities built into our cities and how artists can help unpack and reconsider our urban environments. So I recommend if anybody's interested on the call, I'll drop the link to that class. And we have a lot of other wonderful programming coming up as well that we'd love to see you for. I'm now so excited to introduce or turn things over to our esteemed presenters for this program. So we have my colleague and curator of contemporary art, Jodi Throckmorton. Throckmorton has curated numerous exhibitions, including co-curating the Taking Space, Contemporary Women Artists in the Politics of Scale, which opened on January 21st. And of course, the show we're here to talk about today, Only Tony, Portraits by Gilbert Lewis. And she is joined today by Anthony Rullo, who is a longtime collaborator and model for Gilbert Lewis. Anthony, do you mind unmuting and just saying hi so folks know who you are? Sorry, can you unmute, sorry, and say hi? I just want folks to know.
Unmute. Okay, hello, how are you?
We're great, thank you so much for being here. I did want to mention that Lewis painted Rullo at least 60 times between 1986 and 1996. And we are so excited to have you with us today, Anthony and Jodi. I will turn it over to the two of you. Thanks for being here. Yeah.
Great. Thanks very much, Abby. Thanks for all the planning you do for this, and welcome everybody to what is a very special Art at Lunch, I think. And thank you for being here. I want to kick it off with some thank yous just before we even begin, because I first and foremost want to thank Bill Scott, who I know is on the grid somewhere, because without Bill Scott, I would never have learned about Gilbert Lewis's work. So this was probably 4 years ago at this point, I think, Bill, but I remember very well going over to your house and being completely blown away by what you showed me. So thank you for sharing Gilbert's work with me. This is all to you, and as well as to Eric Rimshaw, who I'm not sure if he's on the Zoom, but you all have provided incredible support for this project, as have many of the funders that are on this call. So thank you for supporting this project, as well as the lenders who, during a pandemic when we've had to continue to extend the exhibition and shift dates, have been incredibly helpful and cooperative and letting us have your work to share with our public for much longer. So thank you so much for doing that. And of course, a special thank you to Anthony Rullo, who I will go back and forth between calling Tony and Anthony. So I apologize in advance already.
That's okay with me.
Okay, good. The two characters, the two different characters, for being here today, because it's really a special opportunity, I think, for us to get to hear from you from a model's perspective of what it was like to work with an artist and to work with someone as wonderful as Gilbert Lewis. So, and I am just going to give us a short introduction to the show with my motive of also letting you all see some installation shots of this exhibition in case you haven't been able to join us at PAFA to see it. And to give you a tiny bit of backstory, we had all hoped that last season would have been the season of Gilbert Lewis in Philadelphia. There was a wonderful project at Woodmere Museum of Art, at Cap Gallery, as well as William Way. And you can actually see some of the results of this on their websites. William Way has an online exhibition, and Woodmere has a wonderful digital publication that if you'd like more context on Gilbert's work, I really recommend that you check out. One of the things that I wanted to do, and after my initial visit with Bill Scott, is I guess I became obsessed with you, Tony, because I saw these images of you and started thinking about how incredible it would be to show the evolution of Gilbert's work through Tony. You know, it's a rarity, I think, in a museum show to focus on just one model and to really look at that span of time through that one relationship. So it was an exciting challenge and a way, I hope, for us to all look deeply at Gilbert's work from the years 1986 to 96. So we'll tour the show a little bit together. We'll be showing you details. Tony will be the main event. I'll be bringing him into conversation as we go. But I did want to place us in the HLB as well. Going back one slide, this is the opening room of the exhibition, which is in the historic landmark building, which I think has special significance for most of us associated with PAFA. But I did want to point out that Gilbert was a student at PAFA in the 60s. And so what you're seeing is on the left, an image of him and the wonderful artist Jodi Pinto sketching in the cast hall. So for those of you that know PAFA, there's an incredible hall of 19th century plaster casts of these ancient or classical sculptures. And so looks like. It would be not uncommon in pre-pandemic days for you to come in and see students doing exactly what Gilbert and Jodi are doing in this photo. And then as well, the photo on the right is a group photo with Gilbert on the bottom right side, Jodi Pinto again, as well as Bruce Samuelson, who's someone that the PAFA community may know. These were award winners during Gilbert's last year for the Crescent Travel Scholarship, which is something that still happens at PAFA. And why I love this photo especially is that it's probably 20 feet from the opening of where Gilbert's exhibition is. So when you visit the show, please imagine these spaces sort of going back and forth between the 60s and today. It's something that is lovely to us, but also as well to think about, you know, what Gilbert learned at PAFA, you know, in terms of an incredible painting technique. You can see in his work that he was a quite accomplished painter as well as quite studied painter. He knew art history very well. And in fact, Tony and I will hopefully talk a little bit about what he learned from Gilbert from his travels, but also thinking about how he was able to, I think, really do something very interesting with figuration and take what he learned at PAFA and do something quite extraordinary with it, which we will get into with Tony. And I did want to come back to this first room to talk just briefly to tell you how the show evolves. And in the first room, what you see is, if you look around the room, you have a complete view of Tony from 1986 to 1996. We decided to focus on this room as sort of jewels. Tony, your jewels. I'm referring to you as little, you know, gems of paintings. But you can see the entire evolution of his time working with Gilbert from 1986 to 1996, and beginning with the painting on the right here called Greenish Eyes, which is the second painting, I believe, Tony. It's not the first painting that he did of you, but it's the second. So I'm wondering if we could start there, and if you could just tell us a bit about what it was like to be in your early 20s and to start working with Gilbert. How did you meet him? What was that first moment like?
In the 80s, I worked on South Street in a little boutique, as many of my friends did. We worked in boutiques and record stores and used our money to spend it on clothes and going to nightclubs at night. Those were the good old days. I met Gilbert through my roommate, Eric, if he's out there. Hello, Eric. He modeled for Gilbert first. He worked at a little grocery store on South Street called Poppy's. And I think he met Gilbert in the grocery store and, you know, told me all about it, how he modeled for Gilbert. I should try it. And that's how it started. I went to meet Gilbert. I was very nervous. I was just an innocent kid raised on the mean streets of Cinnaminster, New Jersey. And and I came to the big city and you know, trying to reinvent myself. And this was one of the things. I met Gilbert, you know, I never knew an artist before. I never did anything like that before. So it was an adventure getting to meet him and start modeling for him.
And what was that first, I mean, could you describe the first time you sat with him and what you remember?
The first time I went to model for him, I was nervous about that he would try to persuade me to model nude. I don't remember if my roommate did or not, but somehow that was on my mind. So I decided to just really layer on the clothes and put on this great outfit that he was going to want to paint me in versus give him the idea that I wanted to take my clothes off. And when I got there, he really put me at ease, and he just told me, I mean, there were nude paintings all around me, which for me, that was like a shock. And especially since I recognized a lot of the faces in the picture, but in the pictures, but he, you know, just told me, model however you like, wear whatever you like, make yourself comfortable. And that's how it started. So the first painting of me is, I'm very clothed. I'm with a turtleneck and a sweater. And so I think that kind of tells the beginning of the story.
But so then you went very quickly. If the first painting was turtleneck and clothed, to at least these torso paintings, which there
Yes.
are a lot of the sort of nude torso paintings.
Well, I mean, it took a long time to do a painting. So by the time, and in between, you know, I say that's the second painting. I think that's the second like full complete work that he did of me, that was put in a frame, shown in a gallery. The first picture, it was just very spontaneous. He did that with the first painting of me very quickly. And then he started doing more like studies of me. Let's try this, let's try. So there may have been a bunch of paintings or attempts in between. I have one picture in my collection that looks to me, it looks earlier than that. I'm gonna show it to you. This one. This to me just seems like it's earlier than that portrait, because my hair looks the same as the first painting he did of me. So this was like a little sketch sort of that he did in between, I think. So anyway, so between, you know, the first painting he did of me and that painting, it could have been 6 months. So yeah, I definitely was like more relaxed, and instantly Gilbert and I became friends, and, you know, I was very comfortable with him.
Sort of an instant connection and camaraderie.
Yes.
Something that you were having conversations, you know, while you were modeling and sitting for him, then I take it.
Absolutely. Gilbert, for me, he was very much a mentor. You know, I was young, I'm gay, I'm new to the city. In having somebody like that, that's older, who's more mature as a friend, he really became like a mentor to me. And I learned a lot of, you know, he like a lot of life lessons, and Gilbert was a therapist. So when you would sit for him, we would have these long conversations like a therapy session. And we would talk about everything from music, culture, what was happening at work. So those are the things we talk about. Pretty much we talked about everything.
And there's a question in the chat that, you know, we mentioned that you were in your early 20s when these started. What was your exact age?
I think I was like 22 or 23 years old in 1986.
Because he started painting you in 1986, and the show stretches into 1996.
Yes.
But one of the things that's incredible to me is, you know, and if you're looking at these two paintings of the back of your neck are just incredibly beautiful. But bringing up in the chat about what year, you know, how old you were when he started painting you, there's something about these early works that there's a lot of vulnerability in them to me. They're sweet, they're a little innocent, they're innocent in some ways, and certainly as we go through we can see how that does and does not shift and change. But, you know, what do you think Gilbert was looking for when he started painting you? I'm asking you to get into his head a little bit, which isn't fair, But you know, what was he trying to capture?
Well, I can tell you, I remember like the conversation the first night that I went to his studio, and I went to Italy to visit my family like before I moved to the city. That was like a big turning point in my life. I basically practically ran away from home to go to Italy. My parents didn't want me to go, and they sent my grandmother with me. And I lived with my family in Italy for about 2 months. And when I came back, I just thought I was so Italian, and I was going to look Italian. And that's when I started wearing my hair and the long bangs, because that's how the kids in Italy looked. And
kind of like this.
Yeah, exactly. And so I started dressing like, that was like the idea that I was going to dress like I'm out of an Italian painting. So when I first met Gilbert, I was the outfit I was wearing was the painting that sold at Cerulean Gallery with the blue vest. And I said something like that to Gilbert, like, oh, I try to look like I'm from Italy, I'm Italian. And Gilbert said to me, I see you walk down the street all the time. And he goes, and you look like you stepped out of an Italian Renaissance painting. And he said, I've always wanted to paint you, but I was too shy to just go up and talk to you. So there's that.
which this work really, really does, this with the green background and this purple turtleneck. And
that's the first painting Gilbert did of me.
That's the first painting, which is extraordinary, beautiful. And I'm sorry to say that it's not in the show.
Yeah.
But I know, but it is one of the best, and one of the best with the clothes and the patterns and everything. And clothes were such an important part of what you were doing with him. I mean, as I was going through it, just really, I mean, he was a master at painting clothing to me, and especially I think those 80s, 90s fashions, if I may say, where he was wonderful at I think exaggerating the awkwardness. For example, the awkwardness of these shoulder pads on the suit, and the fact that they're just slightly off center on you. I want to talk more about the clothes, but I'm also hoping that you could situate us in this time period in Philadelphia, in the 1980s and early 90s. I mean, what was happening in Philadelphia at that time?
Well, I was all about the club scene, which in those days, my favorite club was Kennel Club. We practically lived there on Walnut Street. Revival, Black Banana. I'm sure I can think of some more. And it was all about, the 80s were all about just over the top dressing, and I was not trying to fit in. I definitely had trying to have my own look, my own style. So I don't think I was typical of the way people dressed and looked at that time. And I was very costumey. Like I said, I always tried to look like I'm out of a Renaissance painting. Now, what was happening with me at that time, around the same time that I met Gilbert, I had a boyfriend that we lived together, love of my life. We were together for 5 years. And about that time, I went to the doctor and I tested positive for HIV. And this was back in the day when I didn't know anybody that had HIV. This was something that I never thought would happen to me. There was people in San Francisco, people in New York. And I was a pretty innocent kid. Like, I had not been around the block. And so it was strange that happened to me. At that time, there was no treatment, there was no medication. You just got tested positive and that was it. So when I went home and told Keith and tried to persuade him that he had to go get tested also, he just refused. And he said, that's ridiculous. Why should we get tested? They're gonna round up all the gay people with HIV and throw us in a camp. They're gonna arrest us. Like, there's no treatment, there's no medicine. What's the point of getting tested? So I kind of went along with that. And it's like, you know what, you're right. So let's just not tell anybody. We're going to stay together. We're going to have a great life as long as we can. But we had that cloud hanging over us. So what this has to do with my clothes. I had this thing where, first of all, we both had an attitude where it was, okay, we're just gonna live for today, we're gonna have a great time. So, and a lot of people did at this time. It was just like, spend all the money you can because you don't know if you're gonna be here tomorrow. So I kind of had an excuse now that I could spend more money than I can afford on clothes, because I thought, you know, if Gilbert paints me in this sweater, that sweater's going to live forever. It makes it worth it. I need to invest in these clothes for Gilbert, which was really an excuse just for me to buy clothes. So that's why I always went to Gilbert's with the best things that I wanted Gilbert to paint. And Gilbert loved it. Gilbert didn't know this. I didn't tell Gilbert that I was HIV positive, but he loved to paint my clothes. He loved that I got excited about clothes. And if I bought something and I told, oh, I bought this shirt, he would say, oh, bring it next week. Let's paint you in that. And so a lot of the paintings in the beginning are very much about my clothes. And I also think that what I was doing at that time with clothes was, I came of age in a time where it was the end of the disco era, the end of the sexual revolution. So I'm trying to figure out how to fit into this world where you couldn't be wild anymore. So I was trying to create a person, like come up with a new personality. And so the clothes kind of were like costumes that I was becoming like this new person.
And what I'm showing here are some images that were a benefit of the pandemic, really, where Tony was able to go back in his archives of photos and find images of him wearing some of the pieces of clothing that Gilbert painted, which is really incredible to see, and incredible to see you as a young man in these photographs versus you and the young man in the paintings.
Yeah, and it's the thing is, like, I'm not very I don't like nostalgia. I don't like, and especially that period of time. People bring up stories and things I said or did. I don't even remember it because I sort of blocked a lot of that out of my mind over the years, because it's just, it's a painful time to talk about. Jodi, you remember I burst out crying the first time I told you the story, and which I'm getting teary-eyed right now. Anyway, let's talk about nightclubs. So I used to throw these big parties. This was my kind of like, I'm going to make my mark on the world. And again, this is at the time when the nightclub scene was dying out because people were dying of AIDS. People were afraid to go out. So my friends and I decided, let's have our own parties. And the one picture of me where I'm smoking a cigarette with a long cigarette holder and I'm kind of posing and showing off to my friends, that was a party we had inside the TLA movie theater. And we used the stage as the dance floor. And I was playing movie director with my long cigarette holder. And I'm wearing a big bow around my neck. And the suit was from a vintage shop on South Street.
Well, and this is an interesting question that we've had from the chat. Do we know if Gilbert enjoyed and or participated in the Philly gay scene as well? In other words, was he publicly out then? So it is interesting to think about the difference between your life and a different generation at that time and his at that time.
Well, Gilbert was older than me. And so that's why I think I think that Gilbert's, he could relate to me. Like he saw himself in me because I was young and everything was new and exciting for me at that time. And so, Gilbert had seen it, done it all. He lived in New York in the 70s, and he used to tell me crazy stories. He would always say to me, oh, I can put your stories to shame. And he would tell me stories 10 times more wild than things that I ever did. And but if I could zoom out on that, I can't do it, but if I could zoom out on the picture of me at the movie theater, Gilbert is on the stage dancing. So he would come to my parties and things like that, but he wasn't out like going to clubs and things like that at that time. He painted every night of the week.
Yeah, it seemed like that exchange, that that was his focus, certainly. And then another question, the face in the photos is not the Modigliani thin face in the portraits. Which looked more
say that
like
again?
you?
I'm sorry.
The face in the photos is not the Modigliani, is not the thin face that you see in the portraits. Like, and this is an interesting question, thinking about the translation between Gilbert painting you, right, versus what you see in photos, or even what you look like in life at that time. So which he's asking, or I assume it's he, I'm sorry, Christopher Phillips is asking, you know, which looked more like you? The photos that we're seeing here, or the paintings that Gilbert did?
Well, it's funny because when I would sit for the paintings, I would say to Gilbert, these pictures don't look anything like me. And I remember him saying to me, it's not about looking like you, it's how I see you. Some of them were very distorted. And like I said, he looked at me and he saw an Italian Renaissance person from another period of time. Like, that's how he saw me. And then, like I said, my pictures and slides and things went in a box. I haven't looked at them in years. And it's funny because when I started doing this, putting the pictures side by side, I'm laughing because I'm like, that is exactly what I looked like. That he got my hair exactly with the bangs. Like, I don't remember looking like that. So when I look back at it, it does look like me. But at the time, I didn't think the pictures looked anything like me. So I guess, yes, the photographs are, you know, obviously they're photographic images of me. That's more what I look like.
Right. And
you,
really,
you can see he got it right on the money, really, when you look at it.
He did. I mean, and it's interesting when you go through the entire 10-year swath of the show, it is amazing the variety of looks that he got from you, right? Like they look different. They all convey a different, not all, but they convey a different mood. They convey, it feels like to me, a different Tony in many of them.
And some of the pictures were, he had specific things he was trying to accomplish in some of the paintings, like the one with the green background with that purple turtleneck.
Yeah.
He was doing something with the lighting. Like, I remember he had a lamp just shining right on my face.
Yeah.
He was trying to get that, like the Dutch masters paintings.
Absolutely.
That kind of lighting, that's what he was trying to do. And in the first painting, the one with the green eyes, you see the same thing. He was trying to do that too. Later, there's another picture that I saw in the show where, it might be the one with the back of my head, where my ear is bright red. And I just remember him like, I got to work on this ear. I got to get this ear. Just like, he was all about painting my ear. So he had different goals in each painting, I think.
Well, and we've talked a couple times in our conversation about the wonderful line from one of the Philadelphia Inquirer reviews of Gilbert's work, of a show that he did about the, I don't know if you want to say it, the bowl of fruit.
Yes. It wasn't a comment about me. They were talking about, it was a show about figure painting, and they were comparing one artist's style to another. So in the one artist, they said something like, you know, you can see the emotion in the model's faces, where in Gilbert Lewis's painting, the model looks as impersonal as a bowl of fruit, which I thought that was hysterical. And when people ask me, well, what does it feel like to model, or what was it like? I would say it's just like you're the bowl of fruit. I wasn't trying to put any of my personality in the paintings. It was no accomplishment of mine. I was just sitting there in a chair. I was the bowl of fruit. So I always thought that was the perfect way to describe my modeling.
Which is so interesting, because to me, I feel like these show way more than you being a bowl of fruit. Like, I feel like he really gets to something in all of his portraits, not just of you, but it is that classically trained painter that you can see he's going back to, thinking about the lighting, working on that ear. You know, that's such an academic way of painting. That's really interesting. And there are a few.
And again, when I look back, I see that connection. I can see that, that is coming from me, and the clothes are coming from me. We did talk about poses sometimes. There were a little bit of collaboration.
Yeah. And then someone else, I want to give you a compliment, because someone said you are classically handsome. So you're getting compliments in the chat, which is wonderful, which we always accept.
Thank you.
This is an interesting one that I think also brings us to a group of paintings that I love to discuss. Sorry to make everyone so dizzy for a moment, but there are two paintings that relate to each other quite well. And, you know, one of the questions is, did you ever make suggestions to him as to how he should paint you?
Not really. He would pretty much tell me, you know, pose however you like, or, you know, maybe I would sit down, he would say, no, turn the chair this way, do this, but he never really told me what to do. This painting is different. This was something that was more collaboration. And Gilbert, I told you earlier that it was like a therapy session with Gilbert. And over the course of the paintings, which we're going to get to, I know, but the boyfriend that I lived with died of AIDS. So I went through a big turning point. And I believe that this was after that. And, you know, I was always talking about problems, things in my life. Gilbert would tell me what I should do. But one of the things Gilbert would say to me all the time was, he would say, well, you're an artist. You're an artist and you should paint. And I could never, because I'm too shy. I would never try to paint in front of Gilbert because he was so good. And so that was a theme always, that he would say, you're an artist. And I would say, Gilbert, I'm not I don't do art, I am art. And so this, you know, this was like after that turning point, and where I was getting more into the process and appreciating more what he did. And he asked me he wanted to do a painting of me sitting at an easel, drawing a picture of myself, which that's what that painting is. And I was just so nervous and so embarrassed to like sit there. I was like, I'm going to kill you. Like that picture that I drew looked like a little child drew it. And it looks better in the painting because he painted it. So, and then after he was done with that, after I drew the picture, he then took that picture, he cut the face out and had me hold it up to myself with my face through the hole. And then he painted that picture. And that's one of those things where, like, now when I look at that, I see, was he painting himself? Like he sees himself in me because somehow I'm the artist. Why am I the artist? And putting my own face like through the painting. So I don't know. I don't know like what exactly he was thinking with this.
Yeah, I've always found these two paintings and their place together in the show to be incredibly interesting, because I think when I first read it, I certainly was reading the first painting as you making this self-portrait, which has a long tradition in art history of, you know, he's placing you in that place of the artist, but also the connection to the fact that Gilbert was a practicing art therapist. And you've often referred to your sessions with him as therapy sessions.
Yeah, that was like I was doing art therapy like he did with his patients.
Yeah. And then here in this painting, then it's almost like you're certainly putting your head through your own creation, but then, you know, no offense, Tony, but it does look like he's fixed up the drawing a little bit, right, from your drawing, like you said,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like so I've always read it as also he's putting you again in his creation, and then holding these two pencils.
What's interesting too, if you look closely at that picture, the lower half of my body and the picture are not connected. There's like empty space. So I don't know what the meaning of that is. But something else about these paintings, after he did these paintings, and I read in one of the reviews, a different review, it said something about how his paintings were so intense that they almost looked like self-portraits. And then we did that painting. Yeah. People started thinking I was Gilbert. And people would stop me on the street. Oh, I love your work. And I would laugh. It was just so funny. And Gilbert loved it too. He loved that. And then a while later, somebody did a review of another show where there was like 3 or 4 pictures of me. And they wrote in the review, as always, there were plenty of self-portraits of Gilbert Lewis. Like they put it in the newspaper. They thought I was Gilbert.
Well, and one of the things, one of the questions that has come up is how long were these sessions? And we've talked a lot about how actually one of the problems with you wearing a new piece of clothing to have Gilbert paint was that you'd have to leave it there with him for months in some cases.
Yeah.
So the sessions would go on for quite some time.
I would sit for him at night after work, and like I'd get to his house about 7, and we'd sit till 8:30, 9 o'clock. And to do one painting, sometimes it would be months, because he would start projects, he would tear it up, he hated it. Or he would start something, go back to it later. Or when he would get, like, say something like this, where he did that face, so it's so intense, like that may have taken a really long time to do that. So, and that's how he would always rope me into coming back for more. But there were a few paintings, if you see all the paintings, I'm painted several times in the same white shirt. And that was a case where I kept accidentally showing up in the same shirt, because I forgot we finished that painting. And then it started, well, why don't you just leave this? So I'd have to leave my clothes at his house. And of course, these were my favorite clothes. So I'd have to leave a shirt at his house for weeks. And then later on, that's when it started becoming like, well, let me just not wear a shirt so that I don't have to think about it when I come back. And the same thing with the nude paintings. It became easier to do that.
Well, and that's a good, because I do want to talk about this painting and a subsequent painting after that, because this is a huge turning point. This painting, I think, to me represents a huge turning point in your life, as well as your moment of working with Gilbert.
Yes.
Because as you earlier mentioned, your partner sadly passed away.
Right.
At this time.
And I may start crying. And this was in 1990. We're just going about our lives, and Keith started to get sick, and right to the end refused to go to the hospital. He got worse and worse till it got to the point where I literally, with my arms like this, carried him. We lived a block away from Pennsylvania Hospital. I carried him to the emergency room. And once he went in the emergency room, he was in intensive care, and he just went downhill from there, and he died maybe a month or so later. So still, during all this time, it was all the living in denial. When Keith was even when he was sick and he went to the hospital, he was like, do not tell anyone. Don't tell my family. Don't tell my friends. I don't want anybody to know. So I had to go about my life faking it, being happy, going to work every day. I would come home from work. I'd go straight to the hospital. I would bathe him. I would bring him things. I'd go to the hospital in the morning before work. And I accidentally slipped on the telephone, and I slipped and told his father that he was in the hospital. He and his father were like best friends. And when his father found out he was in the hospital, the father sat with him every single day in the hospital. And so at that point, that's when I just felt like I really need to tell people. And I started telling his closest friends first. And he was furious, but it was just like, I'm sorry, but I can't do this. I can't keep this a secret anymore. And so people started to find out. And when people found out, there was a lot of anger towards me, his friends. Why didn't you tell us? Why did you keep this a secret? Why did you lie? And it wasn't anything about that. It was just self-preservation. And so when Keith died, I went back to Gilbert. Gilbert was my friend. I was at his house every week. I had to go back to Gilbert, and once again, I had to confess and now tell Gilbert this whole story. And I'm sorry, I've never told you this, but Keith died. And that's me telling him.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was.
I'm happy to move on too, if you.
No, I told him, and I was crying, and he said to me, "Do you want to continue painting? Do you want to do a painting?" And I said yes, because at that point, that was the only thing normal happening in my life at that point.
Yep.
So that's the picture, and I asked him to please put the ring that Keith gave me in the painting. So and then again, let's move to the next one, and I'll just end that story.
Yeah, no, it's one of two paintings with the rings, which I think is incredibly significant. And Gilbert did it
Okay, well,
an amazing job.
This changes the mood right here quickly.
This changes the mood. This changes the mood, but it's not unrelated.
Well, from that point on, that was a turning point, because now it was just me alone in the world. You know, I had friends and things like that, and the party was over. You know, it was time to grow up. And Gilbert was, you know, he was my rock at this point. And I don't want to leave out, you know, my other friends. I ended up having to move in with a good friend of mine, Robbie, and I had a lot of support people, but for the sake of the story, Gilbert is my rock. And then this is around the time where I, you know, now I'm appreciating Gilbert more. I'm appreciating his work more, what he's doing. And circumstances led up to us having this conversation, which I will leave out of the story I told Jodi. It is a funny story, but at this point in my life, Gilbert said to me, "Why won't you do a nude painting? You've never done a nude painting with me. Everybody does nude paintings with me. So, you know, I'm trying to break away and become something new now." And I was like, all right, let's do it. So this was the first nude painting that we did. I look very relaxed in this picture. I can tell you my hands were like digging into the chair like this, which you don't see. And that was the first creation. And again, I wanted that ring in the picture. And if you look closely, you can see Gilbert painted his reflection in the painting that's hanging behind me.
He did, and
you can see his face next to my face.
Like to the left side of your forehead, essentially, right?
Yes, towards the leg of, there's like a leg of a chair. It's towards the leg of the chair.
I'm not sure how well people can see it, but it's there, which is really incredibly beautiful at this. Because something that we've talked a lot about is that looking back now, you know, for how many years are we? 40, 50 years on. You know, I look at this as a moment of also, you talk about capturing the clothes forever and wanting these clothes to be captured forever, but it's also capturing you forever and showing your nude body at this vulnerable moment in your life. I've always really read this painting as a way of thinking about mortality as well.
Exactly. From 1980, it was like 86 or 87 that when I found out that I was HIV positive. Mm-hmm. It was, you know, I was going to die. I knew I was going to die. And then at that point, when I watched my boyfriend die, that was it. I would wake up nightmares every night, just terrified. I was going to die at any minute. Like, that's what it felt like to me. There was still no medication that was readily available, treatments. AZT was out there in the world, but they weren't giving it out. So, and this was around the time I had to get serious with my health. And I went back to the doctor, you know, after 5 years, and they tested me again. And at this point, they told me that I had full-blown AIDS. My cell counts had dropped so low. I still had never been sick. I never was sick ever, by the way, to this day. And so again, here we are. I'm, you know, in my mind, I'm going to die any minute. So, I think that's again why that picture is so epic, because the way he did it, you know, he wanted his masterpiece with me also, you know.
Yeah, and it really is. Well, and I know that we're all glad that you're here, Tony, and thank you. And I want to give some time. We've been having great questions in the chat, so thank you all, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen just so that we can all look at each other. And if anyone has any questions, you're welcome to continue to put them in the chat, wave your hand, use the Zoom raise your hand function, however you want to get our attention, and please feel free to, you know, after we call on you, unmute and ask your question. I think there's also a lot of people that knew Gilbert. So if someone really feels, you know, compelled to share a story about him, we'd also love to hear it. If not, Tony and I can talk for hours. We've done that over the pandemic, which has been wonderful. But
that is true.
Yep.
I would like to say, I'll add just for questions, that from that point on, I continued modeling for Gilbert for 5 more years. And I see like a more sophistication in the pieces that we did after that. And I stayed friends with Gilbert forever. I used to help him deliver paintings to the Woodmere and do things for him. We always had a relationship after that.
And we did have, oh, good. So a few things. Someone says that they admire your candor. So thank you, Tony, for sharing with us. And Mike Kauba says smartly that there's several Gilbert portraits right now on view at Cerulean Arts through March 21st. So while you're here, Tony, actually in Philadelphia.
There in Cap, I want to stop in while I'm here.
Yep. And then there is a question about, and that, this is actually something that perhaps Bill Scott, not to put you on the spot, Bill, but that we know that he was looking at Renaissance portraits. Do we know the nudes in the history of art that he was looking at? So, I mean, I don't know any, I can't think of any specific nudes. I might think of a style here and there, but Bill, do you know if there was, a certain work of art that he looked at frequently or anything like that?
I don't know, but I might know later when I'm cooking dinner.
Okay, perfect. No, that's understandable. That's kind of what I was thinking, the same thing.
I'm trying. Well, the nudes per se. When we were cleaning out his house, I'm trying to think of what the books were that he had. I attached to a book he had on Memling, which weren't nudes, but were portraits, and just probably because I love those, and I had seen the show, but never bought the catalog. He did have catalogs of Ingres, but that's not Renaissance, but it's still would be nudes. And he was good friends with, Eric would know the name of the painter he was friends with who did male nudes. Tony, do you know who that was in New York? The guy that did advertising art too. He did the drawing for Victor's hair salon on Chestnut Street. I can't remember. I'm sorry. I should have prepared.
No, I'm putting you on the spot. There's no need.
Are you talking about Paul Cadmus?
No, not Paul Cadmus. It was someone Gilbert's age. There's a photo in the catalog for the show for Woodmere. There's a photograph of him in the back. And Gilbert had all his catalogs, and he loved this work.
Gilbert did his paintings.
Yourselves.
Gilbert did portraits, figure paintings, and flower paintings. That's what he loved to paint.
And there is a beautiful portrait of you, a diptych really, with a flower, one of the flower kind of more beautiful botanical paintings paired with a portrait of you in the exhibition. That's one of the loveliest. And this is a great question. Were you paid for the sessions?
I was, which is funny because when all this started, I could tell when Jodi and other people were asking me, not asking me, but they were saying, is it okay that we do this show about you? And I felt like they were going to ask me, thought that I was expecting to get paid or get something for this. Oh. So I just put it out there. I said, hey, I was paid $7 an hour back in the 80s. I was paid for what I did. This is about Gilbert now and me paying back. So yes, that's what I got paid. I got $7 an hour. And I think at one point he gave me a raise to $8 an hour. So I would get, for each session, I would get like $20, $21.
And the question is how and why did they stop? But I think it also might be an opportunity, Tony, if it's okay with you, for me to share my screen again and show your meeting with Gilbert in 2017. If you want to talk about how the session stopped in the 90s and why, and I'll pull these other images up.
Well, for my own personal story, from, like I said, from the point where Keith died, that's right after that was when they started coming out with medications and then a second medication. And suddenly there was hope, that I was not going to die. And again, this would, Gilbert as my mentor, you know, he would, well, are you saving your money? Maybe you should get a better job. Did you think about buying a house? Buying a house was like a thing I always wanted to do. That was my goal. It's like, I need to get a house now. So I saved up my money. I bought a little house. And, you know, now, like I said, I have hope, like my life's changing. And I kind of just became bored with doing the paintings. And I felt like I was getting older. I was, now like pushing 35, however old I was. And I just started to feel like a man of a certain years shouldn't be doing this now. But, so I gave Gilbert the excuse that, oh, my house, I'm doing renovation. I have so much to do. But like I said, Gilbert, I stayed friends with Gilbert, and, we would deliver paintings together and have dinner together. We would go out together. So my relationship with Gilbert never ended, but the model, and he always wanted me to model again. I thought someday I would do it, but didn't know it would be like in this circumstance.
Yeah, and the image that I'm showing is one that Tony shared with me when in 2017 you visited Philadelphia and were able to see Gilbert.
Yeah, Eric and Jim and Bill Scott, they told me, Gilbert was basically had no memory. And Eric told me, if you're ever going to see Gilbert, you need to come up now. So I went up to Philadelphia to visit Gilbert, and I brought him flowers because I just thought that's perfect for him. That's what he likes. And I went into his apartment there, and there were a few pictures of me on the walls. And when they had to introduce me to Gilbert, they said, this is Tony. And he said, hello, nice to meet you. And I said, do you remember me? And he said, no. And I just said, well, we were friends many years ago. And that was that visit. Bill and Eric, they kept pushing Gilbert. Why don't you draw a picture of Tony? Why don't you draw a picture of Tony? He didn't want to do it. So they pushed him and pushed him. Finally, they handed him a pencil, paper, and he started to draw me. And what I thought was really funny was when he finished the picture, Eric said, why don't you sign it for Tony? And Gilbert said, no. And they said, why not? Why don't you sign the picture for him? And he got angry. He's like, no, I'm not signing it. And they said, why won't you sign the picture for him? And he said, it's not finished. And I just thought that was so funny, because even though the memory's gone, he's not the same person, but he still has that integrity where he looked at that picture and he knows that's not a good picture. It's not finished yet. And he wouldn't sign my picture.
Well, and I think that's, and sadly Gilbert's not well, and that he doesn't realize that these wonderful exhibitions happened at Woodmere and Cap and William Way, and now PAFA. But I think we all do hope that in some ways he's feeling how much his work is now meaning to people. So hopefully we can share some feeling with that. And there is a question about the coordination between those shows, and we did all speak and discuss the different shows. The Woodmere Museum of Art was a much more sort of an overview, a much larger exhibition of work that showed the real breadth of Gilbert's practice. And there is a catalog for that on the Woodmere Museum of Art's website. I'll say again, I'll try to stick a link in there before we end, but I'm not sure I'll get to it. So you can still experience that show. William Way's exhibition was more of a focused look. I believe it's called Awkward Tenderness. Excuse me if actually, you know what? I've got a slide of all this. I forgot. There, perfect. So this is the Woodmere Art Museum catalog, and then the Awkward Tenderness exhibition at William Way, and then the Cap show was focused on portraits, you can see, from 1982 to 2009. So I really thought that since every other show had a point of view and we had the breadth covered, that this Only Tony show was a great moment to go really deep. So if we thought about, so there was coordination in the way that we all thought this would be happening at the same time in Philadelphia. But then the other question is about the cataloging. Oh, perfect, Abby, thank you. Abby's put a link into the Woodmere's exhibition and their online catalog. And William Way's exhibition is online as well. So please go and visit their website as well to see that show. And I think we're actually almost up to time. If anyone has any other questions.
Someone asked me if I was involved in the arts. And
yes.
That was another thing with being friends with Gilbert, that I got to be in that art community. And that's what I loved about being friends with him. And no, I don't do anything with art now. I'm in fashion still. I'm still that same kid. And I say again, I don't do art. I am art.
Let's see. Oh, thank you. Someone said, oh, good, perfect. The William Way link is in there, and then Only Tony is such a poetic name for a show. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you all get to see it. And I'm grateful to you all for being here today. And hopefully we can all send our thanks to Gilbert, and let him know how much we mean to him. And also our thanks to Tony, who I can't thank you enough for how open and open you've been with us in this conversation, and open to me this over what has been now, I think 3 or 4 years since we've been talking about this project. So thank you.
And thank you, by the way. And do you see a difference in my conversation from the first time I met you?
I do.
Between now, how much I thought about this in the past couple of years. And I just want to say thank you, and thank everybody that's involved and all the people that came on the program today. It was interesting. I never did anything like this before. Another adventure thanks to Gilbert.
That's right. That's right. Oh, it's been a real treat. So thank you. And everyone, please feel free to, it can get a little crazy, but if you want to unmute and say goodbye or hang around a little bit, you're welcome. You're welcome to.
Thanks so much, Jodi and Anthony, and thank you all so much for being here. Say goodbye on your way out.
This was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
Hi, Tony.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Joni.
Thank you.
Tony. I just want to say that Tony was an excellent manager. Tony managed our store.
No, Irene, I always think about like how obnoxious I was back in those
No,
days.
you were so much fun.
I would like to apologize.
You were conscientious, and you really brought so much professionalism to our store, and I have nothing but good memories.
Well, thank you. Can you write a letter of recommendation for me?
Anytime.
Just kidding.
Anytime. Totally.
It was great to see you.
Well, this was a great conversation.
This was great.
Thank you for coming.
We should tell everybody it was Zog that you worked at.
Yeah, we owned or Irene. It was 3 stores. It was Zipperhead, Zog, and First on Your Block. That's where we jumped around to like all
Yes,
3.
we did. Yes, we did. We jumped around. Good times, good times.
It's really nice to see Sarah Van Kuren here too. Sarah, I've seen a bunch of some of your photographs of Gilbert and Douglas. Are you still there here? She was.
Yeah, she's. Let me.
Sarah, you're muted. You have to unmute. Sorry.
Sarah.
I got to know Gilbert through Jerry Goodman back in the 80s, and I really treasured his friendship, and he and Doug came over to visit us, and I really treasured his friendship.
Yeah. But you took a lot of photographs of him too, the way he painted Tony. You photographed him, right?
Don't really remember my photographs of him that well, but
okay.
I'm glad if they survive.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Thank you. I like your painting behind you, Bill.
Thanks. It's just started.
It's a wonderful beginning.
Hey, Virgil Marty. Hey, Jennifer Baker.
Oh.
Hey, Bill, it's Julie Jensen Bryan. I was not on video for thing, but really touched by this. I didn't know Gilbert, but I really appreciate the candor and the wonderful drawings and paintings that we got to see. I'll try to get back into PAFA to see the person show. And thanks for all that you've done to help connect it all. Jodi, brava.
No,
Great
it's,
show.
I mean, really, if not for Bill,
Yeah, I'm
wouldn't have a clue.
Bill's
show-
the
the show
heart of
goes
so
through
many
September.
things.
Yeah, the
Shows
show's up through
September.
Labor Day.
So that's good. Yeah.
Oh, great. At the historic building?
Wonderful painting. I couldn't understand how he was working in such obscurity in those days when he painted so well. So this is very satisfying.
How old is Gilbert now?
76, I think.
Oh yeah, my age, 75.
But in all truthfulness, he's the easiest person to work with. I hope that's okay to say. I'm not sure all these shows would be happening